Not only is Jesus Christ white, all of the descendants of Adam are white. The name Adam is very important because it's the name of the first man, and it means to blush, to show blood in the face. And we see in Ezra 9:6, it says, Ezra blushed, something you have to have fair skin to have the ability to do. Also, in Song of Solomon 5:13, it says that Solomon's cheeks are like a bed of spices and like sweet flowers. This is where we get the expression rosy cheeks from. And when we look at how the word Adam is used in the Bible, we go to Lamentations 4:7. For Nazarites were purer than snow. They were whiter than milk. They were more ruddy, and that word ruddy is Adam, more ruddy in body than rubies. Their polishing was of sapphire. So when it says in body, what's the only thing that's a ruby-like color that's inside of your body? It's your blood. And you could see it through their skin because they had milk-colored skin. And the sapphires refer to their blue veins as well as their blue eyes. In Song of Solomon 5:12, it describes Solomon's eyes as a river of water. And then Solomon's wife, she's also has her eyes described in Song 7:4 as like a pool of water. So both of them have blue eyes. When David is described before fighting the Nephilim Goliath, it says that Goliath despised David because he was ruddy and fair. It's the same way that Plutarch describes Alexander the Great. Josephus said that the Greeks and the Judites looked identical even when they were naked. The only way you could tell them apart is their circumcision. We see the stories of the Israelites retold in Indo-European mythology. Thor is a Germanized version of Hercules, and Hercules is a Hellenized version of Samson. The story of Hercules, it is identical to the story of Samson. Both men are divinely imbued with strength. Both kill a lion with their bare hands as their first feat. Both were responsible for the death of their first wives in a fire. Both single-handedly wiped out entire armies. Both faced off against an enemy that fielded giants in their armies. Both are known for their signature use of clubs as weapons. Both are associated with two-headed canines, Hercules with the two-headed dog Orthus, Samson who tied jackals together in two in a plot against the Philistines. Both drank water that miraculously came from a rock. Both tore down the gates of a city. Both had a repetitive weakness for women. Both were sentenced to slavery at the hand of a woman. Both unwittingly met their ultimate demise at the hand of a lover identified as a man-destroyer who betrayed them. Samson by Delilah and Hercules by Dinariah. Even the names of their lovers are practically identical. The Israelites had what we call the ships of Tarshish. These ships could go all the way to Tarshish, which was where the pillars of Hercules were in Spain. And even farther than that, we hear about these isles that the Israelites were going past Spain. Off of the coast of Israel, we've found shipwrecks where there's tin in these ships. In the Bible, in Isaiah 125, we read that the Israelites had tin. There's no tin in the Middle East. They had to get it internationally. They had to go somewhere to get this tin. And the place where all of these tin mines were, when we look at the tin in these shipwrecks, they're from Cornwall in England. And we also read from Herodotus, the Greeks got all of their tin from an island where the sun set, meaning that it's all the way in the west. He calls it Tin Island. Diodorus Siculus also says that there was an island in the ocean past the Pillars of Hercules where the Greeks were getting their tin from. And the Romans, during the time of Hadrian, they said the current inhabitants of Britain came from Spain. And we know from Strabos that the Celtiberians were the people living in Spain. And we can even tell which specific tribe was the one getting this tin, because in the book of Hosea, we read that the tribe of Ephraim followed the eastern wind, meaning they sailed west, because when you're sailing, the wind is pushing you that direction. So we know that the tribe of Ephraim was going to England, and that is the only place that they could have been getting this tin from. The same people who were sailing to England also are the ones that built Carthage. All these ancient statues of the Carthaginians were white people. They were white, Indo-Aryan looking people. They're the same as the Celtic people. Let's talk about the migrations. Around 720-ish BC, we have the Assyrian king Sargon II come in and conquer Samaria. Sargon II is the first person ever throughout all of history to mention the Scythians. There's no mention of the Scythians prior to the Assyrian exile. And as we read in 2 Kings chapter 17, the northern kingdom of Israel was taken to the city of the Medes. According to Diodorus Siculus, the Scythians originate at the Eryx River, which was inside the Median Empire. Now, how did they get into Europe? According to Jeremiah 50, verse 6, it says, "My sheep have forgotten their resting place, and they've gone over the mountains." Who went over a mountain range at that time? As we read from the same person, Diodorus Siculus, the Scythians crossed over the Caucasus Mountains. And then Jeremiah 3, verse 12, it says the Israelites went north. So they can't be down south in Africa. They can't be east in Asia. They went north. Very specific where they went. And then Isaiah 49, verse 12, talking about where the Israelites will be in the future, it says they're to the north and the west. So they're northwest. Europe is directly northwest of Israel. The only place they could be is Europe. And according to Herodotus, he says no one was in northern Europe before the Scythians. They could ride a horse for a whole day straight, and they would give the land to the person who rode all that way because no one lived there. He says it was desolate. This is the two migrations of the Celtic people who still to this day use the harp, the symbol of King David, and the Saxons who use the lion, another symbol of the Israelites, how they both migrated into the British Isles. Iberia comes from the name Eber. Eber is who the Hebrews are named after. There's two places that are named Iberia. One in the Caucasus Mountains, modern-day Georgia, and one in Spain, which is Iberia. These are the two places that the Hebrews went. They went over the Caucasus Mountains in the north, and they sailed to the west to Iberia. And this is what Isaiah 49 verse 12 says the Israelites would go, west and north. The Saxons came from Denmark, but there was already Celtic people in the British Isles who came from Gaul, France, who had sailed earlier on to Spain. And we see in the time of King Solomon that the Israelites were sailing to Tarshish, which was in Spain. And that's where the Celtic people originate from. And even in the New Testament, it says that the Galatians, who are the Gauls, that they are the peculiar people, the chosen generation, which should really be the chosen race. The Scythians, they took a bit longer. They went over the Caucasus Mountains and then into Northern Europe, and there they became the German tribes, the genuine tribes, because they were racially pure. As Tacitus says, they never mixed with any other nation. after the Romans left the British Isles, the Saxons, Jutes, and Anglos started sailing into Britain and invaded. Both the Celts, as well as the Anglo-Saxons and Jutes, all have R1b DNA. So we all share a common origin, and the place that's right in the middle of the two Iberias is the land of Israel. Paul only writes to people in Europe. Romans chapter 9, verse 25, Paul writes, "As he saith to Hosea, I will call them my people, which were not my people, and her beloved, which were not beloved." What Paul is quoting in Hosea is a prophecy about Israel. Hosea chapter 1, "For I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away." And that is what happened to the house of Israel. They were taken to the city of the Medes. It goes on to say, "In the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God." And in Romans 8, Paul says to the Romans that the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, which is God, bears witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. Paul says in Romans 7:7, he only knows what sin is because of the law. In Paul's letter to the Galatians, who were a Celtic people, Paul says that they were once under the law, the same way Paul, who is a Benjamite, was under the law. Jesus, he only came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And in Paul's letter, he says to Greek people, as well as the Galatians, that they are the elect. Who are the elect? Well, in Isaiah 45, verse 4, the elect is Israel. Paul also says in Romans 11 that the elect is Israel. Paul also says that the Israelites are his brethren, but then he calls the Thessalonians his brethren. Paul also says to the Scythians, the Greeks, and the kingdom of Judah in Colossians 3 that they are the elect. They are just as much the elect as Judah, Levi, and Benjamin. Like Saxo Grammaticus says, Odin was a real man who was then later mythologized and turned into a god, into a deity. But he was originally a man. These ancestral gods are either mythologized figures in the Bible, or they are demons like Moloch. Behold, the day come, saith Yahweh, God, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of God. So we would expect that the Germans would not have the scriptures, because there was a famine of the word of God. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. Who is the only people who sailed from a sea in the north to a sea in the east? It's referring to the Vikings who sailed from the Baltic Sea in the north to the Black Sea in the east. And say, Thy God, O Dan, liveth. O Dan. Who is that right there? O Dan? It's Odin. Odin is Odin. He is the patriarch of the tribe of Dan that was then later mythologized and turned into a god. And we know this because the tribe of Dan loved their father very much. They would name all the places after their father. So it makes sense that Odin would just be a mythologized version of Dan. The military tactics the Israelites used in the Bible are identical to the military tactics the Indo-Europeans used. When Joshua and his army was encompassing the city of Jericho, the way they got the walls to fall is they all simultaneously blew trumpets, which caused the walls to fall. Polybius, he says that the Celtic army, when they went to war against the Romans, they would all blow trumpets simultaneously. The language the Celts were yelling their war cries in was in Hebrew, because we see from the Roman playwright Plautus that the Phoenician biblical language was identical to the early Celtic language. We see from 1st and 2nd Chronicles that King David and his descendants dwelt in castles. The defining trait of European castles is the archers' towers. We see in Song of Solomon chapter 4, the tower that King David built was tall and narrow. Jezebel fell out of one of the windows of these towers to her death. And these towers must have been very strong and made out of stone, because when the king of Babylon was trying to invade Jerusalem, he needed a battering ram to get into the city. Charlemagne built military forts on the southern coast of France to defend from Muslim pirates. And he also built military forts on the coast of northern France to defend from the heathen raiders. If it wasn't for these military forts described the same way the ancient Israelite military forts looked like, Christianity would not exist today.